Welcome to another episode of Artsy AF.
Thanks for being here. This week's episode is Peter Westerman, a brilliant painter and founder and
Owner
of threda.
This was a really great one. We had the pleasure of going down to I almost said it wrong. I almost called it threda, like a lot of people I know do.
Stay tuned and you'll see you can call it whatever you want.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, we went down to threda HQ, surrounded by some epic artwork. And this one's really good. We are coming off the high of just having done it.
Peter's brilliant. He's a brilliant curator. He's always pumping out the coolest, most refined, tasteful products and art shows in our cute little bubble of creativity that we exist in.
We had a really good psychedelic talk on this one.
Yeah.
Lots of balanced information. Fair and balanced. I think that's our motto right here at Foxy AF. No, it's good as far as I know. Of course, we just recorded it, like I said, and enough of me babbling.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, anyway.
We'll edit that out.
No, we're going to leave it in. Anyway. So, yeah. Peter's great, and he's really leading the way for a lot of artists and creating a lot of opportunity for a lot of brilliant, beautiful, creative people in the world and helping to spread that across the lands, transforming culture as we know it.
Yeah, that's what we're all trying to do, I think, as creators. And Pete, thanks for talking to us, and everybody strap in.
Yeah.
Because here it comes.
Ready, set,
blast We've added a way that you can support the podcast. If you go to the show description on iTunes or Spotify, at the end of the description, there'll be a link that will take you to a website where you can make a monthly donation if you're feeling it.
Or you can go to artsyafpodcast.com and there's a support the podcast link on the homepage.
It helps us out tremendously, and we're trying to expand, so we thank you guys for all your support.
Big tricks, though.
I do such sick vape tricks. Like, watch this.
Whoa!
Wow, like little baby.
You guys can't see it right now, but I just jumped through a hoop of my own vape smoke,
and then it turned into a jellyfish,
and yeah.
My only trick is I can blow a square.
Shut the fuck up.
Nah.
Yeah, but actually, it's just me just making a square with the smoke.
Okay, nice. A true artist through and through.
Yes. Fooling people.
Yeah. It's all smoke and mirrors, baby.
So, is this the sound check, or are we leveled out and everything?
Yeah.
I mean,
I usually just hit record. And then
we might even start with that vape trick.
Oh, cool.
If you're comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
Yeah. Just like, so it's like, yeah, one of those circles you start out with in like awful employee meetings at like a corporate job where you got to be like, tell us something that most people don't know about you.
Well, I could vape squares.
Yeah.
That's one of my greatest fears, is being in one of those situations where everyone has to go around the room and nervously say something about themselves.
Yeah.
So you don't do like threda meetings where you have to introduce yourself and give a fun fact?
I try to avoid meetings.
Yeah.
No one's ever excited about meetings, so
no,
might as well just avoid them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Welcome in. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Absolutely.
With us,
yeah. This is exciting.
We're here at threda HQ. If you hear some echoing, it's because we're in a gigantic gallery space
with amazing artwork on the wall, I might add. You have a show right now by the prolific Morten Andersen.
Yes. A fantastic Danish artist who is fitting in really well over here with what we've got going on.
Yeah, it's great. Some CT Nelsons are on the wall.
Yep. One of Denver's finest, I would say.
Yeah. And then you have a collab over here. I think it's with Seth and Fabian, right?
Yes, Seth McMahon, Fabian Jimenez, and then Brian Hampton also.
Oh, awesome.
Yes.
Just legendary.
Dang.
I love that painting. And we will definitely give you guys a visual reference for that in the podcast notes on our website. But yeah, man, so you're an artist, obviously, and you own and manage threda.
That is correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
Which is like a art merchandising company with mostly apparel. Would you say? Prints?
It's always been intended for it to be a 50-50 split where we focus half on just the creation of the art and then half on this whole clothing line idea that I've had.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it's awesome that it's like artist owned and managed.
Yes, and that's, I think that's one of the reasons it's worked is because I kind of liken it to being similar to the setup for a record label, where a lot of times the producer or owner of the record label has experience maybe as a rapper or as a musician, somebody who can relate to the people he works with on a creative level.
Yeah, I think that's super important.
It speaks to the excellence of what you're doing too. I mean, you guys are leading the way with, you actually make tasteful psychedelic clothing,
We try.
It's
absolutely.
It's understated. It looks really nice. And then you open up a jacket or a hoodie, and on the inside, it's like exploding with this vibrant psychedelic artwork. And you curate, some of the greatest visionary art from around the world.
Well, thank you, John. That's a great lead into yourself also, because we've also featured some of your art.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that metal print.
I'm
boy.
just subtly pumping myself up.
Yeah, I like that. Since the beginning, I've wanted it to be kind of an example of just a balance between, left brain, right brain, black and white, chaos and order type of things. And the clothing is supposed to represent that too. A really nice mix of this thing's under control, but it's also out of control at the same time.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's such a good metaphor for just like psychedelic people. It's like on the outside, we can look, I'm not a great example of this right now, but on the outside, we can look pretty normal, and then you open that mind up of a psychedelic person, and it's like, whoa, you just dive into all sorts of like perspectives and colors and geometric shapes. Yeah.
Not to say you don't have some great art on your t-shirt right now.
Right. Yeah. Shouts to Jack Shearer. I'm sporting that heavy magic right now, buddy.
Heavy.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, it's amazing, like how high level threda has become in this amazing space, throwing these crazy shows, such amazing quality clothing products and prints and everything. Like, how did you get started doing this?
Yeah, we might as well just try to start at the beginning somewhere.
Yeah.
It's to me, it's just a culmination of the things I've been really interested in a visual sense since I was younger. My dad was a graphic designer.
Nice.
And so I was around Photoshop and just visual arts tools from a young age.
Nice.
And although he didn't push me towards it, I always just liked to play around with whatever tools he had in the house. And so I did end up going to school for graphic design. I had been doing websites and just trying to figure out the freelance designer life.
Yeah.
And so I did go to school in Wisconsin for graphic design and didn't quite finish because I just started to realize what I was getting myself into. Talking to other designers and realizing what the potential is to be a graphic designer. And it kind of comes down to you're always going to be trying to do someone else's ideas.
Right.
And I realized how much stress that brings when you're trying to interpret other people's ideas all the time.
Yeah.
And you're not only kind of having to mitigate your own creativity in a way, but you have to do it for a low amount of pay as well.
Yeah.
So,
And you're kind of like on someone else's leash a little bit.
absolutely. So I got discouraged towards the end of my college time, and I ended up dropping out with 16 credits left to get, just kind of realizing, you know what, I think if I put all of my ideas for visual arts and just these concepts for clothing I was thinking about, I think I could probably support myself a bit better than with this degree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I made the hard decision to just, you know what, I'm just gonna take the risk. I always kind of wanted my own fun creative project as a business. Mm-hmm. And what better time to do it than when
Right
you're
after.
young and trying to leave your school environment.
It's a true testament to strong intuition and, following your heart. And you had this feeling and this potential inside of you. You fucking went for it, man. And I can also see that your training as a graphic designer, it doesn't matter that you graduated, but that training has helped you hone something very aesthetically pleasing and grounded, balanced.
Absolutely. I think design skills are important for any artist because it teaches you the fundamentals of balance and composition.
Trimming the fat.
Exactly, yeah. Not going too far, using colors that look right next to each other.
Right.
These are things that all help paintings too.
Yeah, exactly.
And so yeah, that did really help me get into, and so I didn't actually go from just being a straight up designer to starting threda. I slowly realized I wanted to do just artwork.
Yeah.
And so for a few years I explored just trying to support myself with some art projects I was working on.
Nice.
And so that's what really led me into realizing, I actually love art more than design.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of able to start up this business where it's based on art, but I got to design and be the main designer for the business.
Yeah.
So I kind of
weave that together.
Yeah.
I just wanted it all.
It's a cool synthesis of those two things.
Yeah.
So when you did start threda, you've always been into like the dye sublimation style?
Yes, I remember when I saw my first dye sublimation shirt. It was an Alex Gray shirt. And I had never seen someone print a full painting on a t-shirt like that. And I just thought, man, this is the most amazing way to work with clothing, is having no limits whatsoever to what the thing can look like.
Sweet. Yeah. I guess my question is, because I'm just a total noob and know nothing about dye sublimation or printing or just things like that. Do you guys have your own printer, and did you need, or did you just save up a bunch of money at the very beginning and kind of like put it all into threda? Okay.
So when we first launched, it was all screen print tees.
Oh, cool.
Sublimation wasn't yet available. This was in 2009 when we started.
Oh, wow.
And this is before everyone knew about sublimation.
Yeah,
so
it was like this new exciting thing.
Yes, and there were almost no options for a couple years. And as it became more popular, we finally were able to start using it the way we wanted it to.
Nice.
Yes.
That's awesome. So you're 10 years in the game at this point.
Yeah, this will be the 10th year this year.
Damn.
Well, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
You guys are crushing it.
It's kind of hard to believe I've been able to do the same thing for 10 years.
It's awesome, man.
It kind of flew by in a way.
Yeah. Right?
Oh, yeah.
You wake up and look back, you're like, whoa, I'm 10 years into this.
Yeah. And, the reason I picked the combination of things I did is, number one, just because I've always kind of been obsessed with clothing, just being able to wear the colors I like best, being able to have to me, it's kind of part of being an artist and designer personality is you want to customize everything about your life.
Oh, yeah.
And
Definitely.
that's the thing I've been hooked on since I was a kid. I just want to make everything my way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're a kid, sometimes it's really hard and frustrating because you can't.
Right.
So that's what I was excited about as a young adult. Like, you know what? I just want to really spend time on making everything the way I envision it.
That's really cool.
And so the reason it's a combination of art and clothing is these are two of the oldest things that humans have done to express ourselves.
Yeah.
Is we put art on our walls or cave walls,
in our caves,
you know, and we like to try to choose what we put on our bodies because it's a cool part about being a human.
Self-expression. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I felt comfortable picking these two things because I knew none of the clothing and art aren't fads. These are just it's part of being a human.
Yeah.
And so I felt like, you know, these are things that can evolve with me and become more and more interesting and blossom over time. And they're not going to disappear.
Yeah, there's no dead end. Yeah.
Exactly.
Always evolving and growing, and you get a more subtler mind, more experience, and you get to really like drill in. Like each year, you're just coming up with cooler ideas, like doper clothing that like, you know, that like transcends any scene or anything. It's just like, oh, that's cool clothing. You get to like sneak in psychedelia with what you're doing too, which I think is pretty cool.
And that's what excited me about this type of art is I think it's kind of genreless in a way.
Yeah.
We use these terms that are kind of an umbrella term for the art, like psychedelic art or visionary art.
Yeah.
But really it's just a lot of expressionist work. There's abstract elements, there's classical elements. It can be so many different genres like put together in an inspiring way. And I just felt like this is one of those facets of the art world that most people don't know about yet. And that's it's really exciting to be the guy to get to show people something new.
Yeah. And it seems like most people that are lucky enough to come in contact with it, they just kind of become happier, a little less high strung, because along with it comes a lot of really nice, great people too. There's this openness and this like sweetness to it all, which I think is really great.
That's cool to hear.
You're creating a vehicle, you know, to spread that into the world.
Well, I've just always felt if the people making the art have good intentions, it's going to come through the artwork too.
Yeah, like ripples out.
Even if it's super abstract, if the artist is doing a good enough job translating his personality into his artwork, you can, you know, get that person's positive quality traits in the art as well.
Exactly. Yeah, you get a little hit of that with every reproduction and every view of it.
Yeah. And, you know, I'd like to say good job to you guys, because when I look at both of your paintings, I can totally see the people I know in them too, which I love.
Right.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's one of the cool parts about the genre that we're all involved in is it seems to have evolved so quickly
and organically. I feel like it's just kind of an emergent property of all these worlds colliding, and maybe it's even an outgrowth of something like the internet, where you have just limitless references, and you can literally get any type of art or music in front of your eyes or in your ears. And I think what we're doing is like synthesizing whatever this time period will be known as, you know, and just kind of re-expressing. I don't want to say like no one has any original ideas, but we're sort of, like I said, like synthesizing all of what we love and then filtering that through our personality.
Yeah.
And I like what you mentioned there, that it's really hard to say how this time period will be known because there's so much happening right now at once. And I think you're right. It ties into the internet and technology becoming part of our lives. Like
it has to.
I think if you looked at the way art changed from, let's say, the 70s and 80s to when the computer became a part of people's lives, it changed the foundation and the nature of some of the art.
Totally.
And made it look much more digital, and, for lack of a better word.
Right.
Yeah.
It's definitely examples I know of from before computers of digital type stuff. But I think it was really just from highly intuitive artists who kind of knew like, oh, this thing is going to turn into part of our lives. And
right.
One of my favorite examples of that is that Dali painting of Abraham Lincoln made out of pixels.
Pixels, yeah.
Which I think was maybe the late 70s, I believe.
Yeah, it was a little later, I think, in his career.
Yeah, it looks like it was made on a computer today.
Yeah.
And I love that he had he had some kind of sense of, oh, these pixel things are going to be really important to us.
That's interesting. The artist just lets themselves go, ego dissolved into the realm of creativity, pulled something out way off in the future, you know? It's like more relevant today than ever, that piece of artwork.
Yep.
I think I personally, like all my favorite artists, I first saw their art on a computer screen.
Yeah.
And I think my own paintings kind of look digital because all of my influence from art, like even though they were paintings, I was seeing them on a digital screen. And I think that informed the way I actually put paint onto a canvas, you know, like there's that aspect of it. And then there's also like all of you guys that I know, we're all linked up because of social media. I think we're the success stories of social media.
Absolutely.
It gets a bad rap, but I think we all kind of have like created a community by seeing each other online. And like naturally gravitating to each other.
It's a tool, and like any tool, there's a way to use it positively and negatively.
Right.
And I think a lot of artists have been able to use it fairly positively, and that's how I found all the people that I know about, including you guys, is from seeing pictures on the internet, more or less. My first real aha moments on the internet happened on these early art collective websites. The one that's gone now was just 3dfxartist.com.
Nice.
It was kind of a DeviantArt type website, but with mostly digital focused art. And I was just really struck on how natural and beautiful and abstract people could, how organic things could look through digital art. And there's a few specific artists that I found where I was like, wow, you know what? Digital art can be anything you want it to be.
Yeah.
And so that's why I have the group of artists I do. I like having a representative of, you can do this with many different mediums and make it look the way you want it to.
Exactly. Yeah. And when you started threda, did you initially start working with other artists, or was it just your stuff? And how did you meet those artists that you built the company with?
I believe all the initial artists were people I found on DeviantArt.
Nice.
And they were just people I had talked to a lot about their art, people that I felt like were becoming my friends. And we started with, I think, 5 different artists and plus myself.
Nice.
So the idea was always of the collective. It was never about, oh, this is like my art project about my art. It was always about, let's see if I can help other artists figure out what to do with their artwork.
That's so cool.
And when I started it, I had a wide format printer. So the easy idea was, well, why don't I just make a website, design a website, and help these artists make prints?
Yeah. That's so cool to like not every artist is very business minded, but you have a mind for that, and you excel in those skills, and to do it not just for yourself, but to bring up everybody with you, you give a vehicle and a platform. And I think that's cool. Like we all have these different tools or perspectives of integrating with reality, and we all get to kind of help each other move up together.
That's
I think
cool.
It's really beautiful.
And you know what? That's what a business is. It's just a way to integrate with reality. And I think the word business has kind of a big negative connotation these days,
Especially in the art world.
Yeah,
oh, absolutely.
Avoiding it because it sounds gross for some reason.
It does. It totally does. And I feel kind of lucky because my initial ideas as a teenager was kind of more business related. I was more fascinated with technology businesses and just how creative they could be, like so many new ideas and things people hadn't seen before. And I kind of had the idea of, wow, if I want to be super creative, I should start a business because it'll make money and I can fund the creativity with that. And really a business is just a super malleable creative project. You get to set it up however you want. You get to call it whatever you want. You get to make it look however you want. So there's a lot of creative decisions involved with that. And I was just kind of excited to get to do that all myself. So I know a lot of people talk about painting and drawing as a kid. I didn't do that until I was an adult, but I was coming up with logos and like ideas for interesting businesses that would excite people.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my background of what I was thinking about when I was young. And I feel lucky because I had that foundation before I got into just, I want to be an artist and help artists.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, and the way you describe, you know, it's more of an extension of an art project than it is, you know, a business.
Absolutely.
Like,
It's an art project first, and thank God it happens to also make money for people.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's kind of one of the funny things about a business is that's the whole goal of it, is just to be helpful for the people involved financially.
Right.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't do that, then the IRS says you're a hobby, not a business.
Yeah, you told me that a couple weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, what is it? You, just for any artists or young business owners out there, it's like if you report either breaking even or a loss for 5 years in a row, they consider you a hobbyist.
Yeah, and the government doesn't like when you do a lot of things that has no benefit to them.
Yeah. Yeah, just a heads up, everybody.
But it's also what makes people good at things is a hobby is all about your passions.
Yeah.
So it definitely was a hobby that I turned into a business.
Yeah.
Right on. And what does threda mean?
So one of the concepts that I came up with was this is going to be a lot of abstract ideas and abstract art. And so what word could possibly contain all of these thoughts and you know, broad, unexplainable things. So I felt like the name needs to reflect that, and the name has to be kind of a container where people can apply their own meanings to it, just like the artwork. So I was essentially looking for a word that hadn't been used before on the internet, and it's really easy because you just type the word into Google and see what comes up.
Nothing's there.
And so I just thought something that sounds like the word threads in a different language, because threads just is a nice vague meaning for ways to connect things, the ways things weave together.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I came up with kind of an abstraction of the word threads, and when I found one that had no search results in Google, that's when I knew, like, this is my word.
It's fucking
Nice.
genius, man.
Yeah.
It's funny, yeah. Like I had no idea what threda meant, but like you get what it means too.
Right.
Like it's very effective. That's really cool.
It's been cool hearing how many people seem to figure it out.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But at the same time, since it's such an abstract word, people will pronounce it differently, which I think is really cool. It's, you know, I don't even want to correct people. It's kind of, it's up to you how you want to relate to it.
It's
like,
just
what's
like-
your favorite way to say it, I guess?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really
just like a
cool.
piece of art.
Yes.
Sometimes
Yeah,
just
exactly.
like you hear it or you see it, and then you're like, oh, threda. I've heard people say threda.
Yeah, and it's a little, feels weird sometimes to have a business name that people struggle with. Like, it seems like it wouldn't be a combination for success that people often have trouble remembering how to spell it, I notice, which it must have hurt our ability to be shared with others somehow. But at the same time, it's a lot of, you know, word of mouth, and I think people just show other people on their phone or a computer, and once Google helps everybody out. You can kind of throw in whatever spelling in there, and it fixes it.
Did you mean threda?
Yeah, it's great.
And we were also talking about before we started recording, you were listening to one of our other podcasts, and we were kind of down about becoming merchandisers as artists.
Yeah.
And you had a really good, really insightful rebuttal to that, about how like you don't feel like a merchandiser if you make stuff that you actually want to use and you enjoy yourself. Like, can you expand on that a little bit? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no question that merchandise deserves to have some some negative feelings attached to it, because it's, you know, it's a way Hollywood movie tries to cash in on a bunch of little kids.
Yeah.
Regardless of if it's creative or has like a lot of intention behind it, it's just a way to let's get more money out of this weird movie we came up with.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is there's some movies that have even been written for the purpose of merchandise or TV shows. Like I believe maybe Transformers and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles might be two examples of they created this as a merchandise idea and then spawned it into basically elaborate ads for the merchandise through cartoons and movies.
Damn, so
Man, that
they
really
reverse engineered it.
Yeah,
Yes.
that really changes the scope and perspective of my childhood.
It's still real to me, damn it.
Yeah, I love the Turtles. Actually, that was something, I don't know, who knows when I thought this, but I was wondering, like, who created the Turtles? I mean, maybe you don't know because, who knows? But if it is like this reverse engineered merchandising thing, I guess I still love the Turtles.
I think it's still creative either way.
I think it's really rad.
Yeah.
Right. Just because it's, and going back to your question, John, that just because it's merchandise doesn't mean it can't be something that you put a lot of love and effort into. And so I've always just felt like if I treat the things we sell to people just like I'm trying to create a piece of my own personal artwork, then the limits are the same as artwork where people can get a lot out of it and talk about it and feel good about participating with it. And so I just think there's a way to do it where it's something that people can tangibly feel good about and know there's like real thought and intention put into the ideas behind it.
Yeah. And quality products too. It's not like disposable,
Yes.
It's not like
Wear it
Redbubble
twice.
pillows.
That's important to me. And that's actually what stops me from making a lot of other items is if I feel like people don't really treat it serious in their lives, I don't want to participate with it. Like something people will throw away. And that's why I love clothing, because I know people's relationships with clothing from talking to them and just knowing how I relate to clothing. And when you have that favorite t-shirt or those favorite shoes, like the way we treat it it's got a lot of love to it. And you want to, it feels good to see that t-shirt nice and clean and ready to wear because you know how you feel when you put on that t-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just felt like that's the same emotional connection people have with the art we put on our walls.
Right. I think art is a lot about, when you're selling it for sure, is about kind of selling the feeling that you were having while you were making it, because you know that is part of like the best parts of your life, I think that's why we're artists. I would dare to say that, like, we do it because this feeling we get when we make it and when we complete it and we feel like it's the best we could do. And you want to give that feeling to the people who potentially might take it home on whatever medium it's on. Like, and I like what you were saying earlier before we started about, as artists, our market ranges from like dishwashers to, Silicon Valley, like CEOs potentially. And so it's good to make, and this is why merchandise is a good thing too. Because if someone wants to take that feeling home and maybe can't afford an original painting, but they can't afford, say, a jacket, a print, or even a sticker, you're there and you can say, here's a little slice of what I was feeling in that moment. And so, it's kind of like helped me in my perspective with that.
Making it accessible,
Yeah.
and supporting. Artists have to make money somehow.
And most people can't afford a giant painting.
Right.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford a lot of my originals.
You can't afford your own art.
Exactly. Right. And
I can afford to take the time to make them.
even being around so many paintings with the job I have, I wish I could keep a lot more of them.
Yeah,
But it's just it's like a few percentages. It's a couple percent of people out there who can really invest in paintings and originals, and there's something really cool about that whole aspect of it too. There's something really special about the original.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
it's charged up.
And I would never discount any of that part of the art world, but it's not for most people.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sure. Sure.
And so I, as much as I would love to focus on that stuff, I just feel better knowing that the experience of this stuff is accessible to someone who's really passionate about it, but doesn't have the financial ability to like go into the most serious deep end of 10-foot paintings and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's really cool. And so how do you balance running a business and then making personal work? Because you're an artist as well, you know, like you make, and you do a lot of interesting techniques like digital work, combining like photography and like, don't you like you print out photographs and like paint on top of them and everything? Like you do a lot of interesting stuff, but how do you balance it all?
Well, you know, a lot of it's that I just want to be in a place where I understand these mediums. I love watching artists use different mediums, and I feel like it would be fun if I could understand each one, and it helps me relate to the people creating the stuff.
Yeah.
And it's fun to participate and learn new things. And so I've tried to not limit what medium I'm using. I like to try everything because I want to figure out which one is me. And so it's been a long process of just kind of using whatever tools are exciting to get the results I want. And lately, the satisfaction of just making the whole thing by hand is kind of addicting to me at the moment.
Oh yeah.
And that's part of why I love these collaborations, is because when you get a bunch of people together, the process goes really fast. And it's a way for me to still paint, but to, you know, also further other people's artists' careers. And at the same time, like, we get to condense this creative experience into usually a smaller period of time than me just making something by myself.
Yeah. And like the pressure's off you, like I have to do this one piece.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get to do it collectively, and with a combination of people, it's something that none of you could have created on your own.
Yeah, and this is something the music world has figured out long ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, being a solo musician it seems like a lonely endeavor.
Yeah, like poor Elvis.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you gotta have at least a backing band, or I mean, a lot of the musicians in our world right now are somewhat solo, I would say. But
I think the energy you get when you're syncing up with multiple people and making something together is really addicting. It feels like you're making your power exponential. And I really like that idea of, wow, now that I have these 2 or 3 other people involved, now the limits are even more endless.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's something I have like a fear of collaboration. I haven't done much of it. You know, I've only done like passing a painting back and forth, but like actually creating it together with people is something I haven't really done. And there's like I have some fear to it. Like did you kind of just jump into that right away, like back in the day, or is it something you kind of had to, you know, like, were you just ready to collab with people immediately?
Yeah, it was something that I just loved about running a business. Is every project I did with an artist, like I get to kind of collaborate with my thoughts, and you know, I even get to change other artists' work and help them make it the best possible fit for something. So that's kind of a form of collaboration too. But really what it comes down to is my group is it's a heavily visually specialized group. We are trying to make interesting imagery. And so if I can make an interesting collaboration happen, then the whole collective gets, you know, it's like a cool little trophy to put on the wall. Like here's another unique image that could have only happened because we have this cool little interaction between people.
Yeah. Oh, so let's switch
real quick, just
Yeah,
to
go
answer
for it.
John's other question. Yeah, it's totally natural to have that fear of collaborating. And one of the difficult challenges is certain methods and art styles are much more difficult to fuse with other people than other styles. And
Yeah.
so that's why you typically see collaborations be fairly abstract, is because that's what lets the different styles blend together a little more seamlessly without having to sit down and put a ton of energy into pre-planning the whole piece.
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah.
ask you that. Do you mostly, let's say, for sure on collaborations, there's probably not much of a pre-plan, but when you're doing, like, say, a solo piece, or do you pre-plan it at all? Do you design it, kind of
I like to
sketch it or anything?
I feel like it's two parts of your brain, and I try to exercise both equally.
Yeah.
We just completed 2 large collaborative paintings in the gallery here with me, Jake Amazon, Stephen Cruz, and Blake Foster. And it was a very distinct 2 painting process. We worked on them both at the same time. One was very planned out, and the other had 0 plan.
Oh, that's cool.
And
That's
the
fun.
dynamic
Cool.
between the 2 was really obvious. One had a lot more mental energy put into it. The planning was, it takes more energy.
Yeah.
And so what I kind of realized is we are all taking breaks from the planning and having more
jamming.
fun on the jam one.
Yeah.
And having that dynamic I think it's important, because
Definitely.
both of them can lead to the best results. You just
Yeah.
have to see what's best for you.
Exactly.
Do you prefer one over the other, or do you just keep that kind of principle in mind all
Well,
the time?
it's 2 types of excitement. There's the excitement of, I have this image in my head, and I think it's really cool, and I want to
Yeah.
get it out into the real world. And then the other type of excitement is, wow, this is just showing up out
Yeah,
of
yeah.
What's going to happen?
nothingness.
Out of thin air.
And that's a whole different type of excitement than having that spark of, wow, I have this whole image in my head and I know exactly what to do.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm just like spitballing. It's kind of just throwing it into the ether, but yeah, there's a lot of abstract collaboration happening. It'd be interesting to see some artists really pre-plan and have like a maybe like a purpose for a piece, and really like plan together subject, figure. Okay, I'm gonna do this part. You do this. It'd be interesting. I don't know if a lot of that type of collaboration happens right now. It'd be cool.
Right.
It'd be
Yeah.
something really cool
And-
to experiment with.
I think the challenge with that type of collaboration is that sometimes it's not as good when you can see separated styles in the piece. Like, this
Yeah.
person made this thing over here, this person made this thing over here. If it's not a seamless flow in between those 2 elements,
Yeah.
it's going to look like you kind of mashed up
Exactly.
and did a
like a
collage type
collage, yeah.
thing. Yeah. And that's one of the things that's kind of hard to avoid sometimes.
Yeah, that's an interesting challenge. I don't know.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole other aspect of knowing who you're collaborating with. Because
Yeah.
if you really understand somebody's style and their thoughts behind it and why they do things the way they do, that's going to really help you
Oh yeah.
integrate with them in the best way possible.
Yeah, melt together.
I think just liking the person a lot
That's-
goes a long way.
helps.
Yeah.
That really does go a long way.
I mean that's obvious.
I haven't experimented too much with collaborating with people I don't like.
Maybe you should try it, man.
Yeah,
But you
should
never
create
know.
like a super crew of like a group of people that would not get along together.
This has been a joke that's come up, is purposefully trying to set up a collaboration with people who are going to kind of have a meltdown together just to
Yeah,
see
yeah.
what happens, because
Yeah.
maybe it'll be amazing, but if it doesn't even work out, it'll at least be fascinating to
Entertaining.
watch.
Yeah.
all
Be interesting,
those
yeah.
people try to figure it out.
Well, an exploration of the shadow or something,
Yeah, absolutely.
I would actually, that could be some grand thing that like alleviates pain from the world if these people could figure it out together, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys remember doing the group projects in school?
Yeah.
Where you had
Yes.
3 or 4 people?
Mm-hmm.
And like one person did all the work, kind of.
Yeah. To me, it always felt like your best chance was 50%, you know, congruency between your group. And then you would probably end up thinking 2 of those people were like someone you never wanted to work with again.
Yeah.
And those are the feelings that happen when you get thrown into collaborating with random strangers. It's like,
Yeah.
it could be a good learning process, but it's also can be really painful and frustrating.
Yeah. You really have to be able to listen to the other person, not just like auditorily, but visually, like, and see their vibe. And just let things go too, you know, like you can't be a control freak and be a good collaborator at the same time.
Yeah, that's a great lesson to get out of collaboration is if you want to be forced to learn how to let things go,
Yeah.
just collaborate with someone who paints really fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or someone who has no problem covering a lot of your work because
Yeah.
the first few times it happens, you're like, oh, you deal with a lot of internal cringing and
Yeah.
thoughts of self-worth and
Anger.
there's
Slight
there's
anger.
very possibly some anger mixed in too. And you know, it makes me think of musicians a lot because they've been going through this stressful stuff for a long time, and
Yeah.
we've seen bands in the 90s try to make super groups and hey, we're all so talented, what could go wrong?
Mega egos.
Yeah.
Just,
Ego's in the way.
So, and you know what? That ties into the psychedelic aspect of the collaborations because psychedelics, as many people know, have this fascinating relationship with the ego and helping you maybe step outside your own ego. And that's part of the collaborative process is you have to kind of be depersonalized
Yeah.
and get out of the way of yourself and the other people too sometimes.
Yeah. You got to dissolve those hard opinions and rough edges to really make something beautiful
Yeah.
out of that.
Just let go. Let your body be a vehicle for creativity,
Yeah.
however it wants to come through.
And it's a weird thing trying to all be on the same page the whole way through it.
Yeah. You probably hit points where you're like synchronized and it's flowing, then it, gets chaotic.
Totally. And then those are fascinating moments when you have to watch people, problem solve and figure out whose opinion is better.
There's a lot of trust that goes into it.
Yeah,
too.
absolutely.
Like you just kind of got to trust the style of the person or people you're working with as well to make good decisions and to communicate, I guess, as best.
And that's something you've done, Andrew. I know you've done some collaborations.
Yeah, mostly with Bobby.
That's right.
Yeah,
And
mostly with Bobby, and he really taught me. Shouts to Bobby. How to
Bobby Cruz.
Bobby Cruz, yeah.
Episode
Thank
1,
you.
Artsy
Episode
AF.
1, yeah.
Oh, he was episode 1.
Yeah.
That's right.
But yeah, he taught me to flow much better than I ever had before, to let go and to trust, And he's great to work with because he completely trusted me and whatever whatever I wanted to do. I'd ask him, like I kept asking and asking, like, what about this? He's like, yeah. And after like the 5th or 6th time, he's like, dude, just do whatever. Like, I was like, oh, okay. I get it now.
And that's part of why doing it with your friends is important is
Right.
you give your friends more freedom
Yeah.
than strangers
And you're free to be vulnerable with your friends
and
too.
and it, strangely enough, part of being friends is being able to say things that you couldn't say to your non-friends.
Yes, exactly.
And what a great thing to have to learn is to let go and kind of flow with the situation because that's what life is about in challenging situations.
Yeah.
Are you gonna stiffen up and let that situation like shut you down, or are you gonna flow around it and get around the obstacles? Right, the be like water Bruce Lee mentality.
Yeah, it's like some new school of Zen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
like yet another way art reflects life.
So do you have like a specific mission or statement or sense of purpose in what you're doing?
In a way, yes. I like having kind of broad goals for the business as a whole, because that leads to a lot of freedom for what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. But I think the reason I love this genre of art and why I got into just art and clothing in general is because it's a very open-ended possibility kind of situation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the idea of let's just evolve this thing as much as possible and see where it takes us. And, if I had to pick an actual goal, it would be, I just want to show people things that they've never seen before.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best part about art, isn't it?
Yeah.
Instilling a sense of wonder.
Yeah.
Possibilities.
But it's it's the same as trying to go to the moon or Mars. We're trying to go and see things or show things to people that have never been seen before. And to me, that really connects in with what humans are all about. Like, we're explorers and we're very curious people. And what's more exciting than being able to make an image that no one's ever seen before?
Right.
And that's like medicine for the world. It's, it becomes popular, especially now, to be so down about the state of things. And instead you're being like, no, but there's endless possibilities. Look over here.
Yes.
We can,
and through completing those possibilities, one of the actual goals that I usually think about is, I hope people look at this and realize, like, they can create their own life too.
Right.
Totally. You can make life however you imagine it in your head. And hopefully you have, good things that you want to create the world into.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot of examples of people using a creative vision in a really dark and twisted way. That's a whole other type of creativity.
Yeah.
But being able to make the world the way you want it, that's like, to me, that's kind of the definition of magic. Is magic is taking something and turning it into something completely different that you've decided on.
Exactly. And that highest form of magic, like you listening at home, that love you feel in your heart and that thing you wish you could do. If you just try, and you don't try, do.
Yeah.
If you do it and you follow that thing, you'll be so surprised at how your reality will transform.
And that's a habit you can build of just doing instead of thinking about it. And eventually it'll make you very it'll make you super okay with whatever happens.
Yeah.
Because you're always doing things, and when you do a lot of different things, the results are going to vary. There's going to be good and bad.
Exactly.
And that's just part of being active and pulling those, life has all these levers to pull. And I like pulling all of them to see what happens. Who cares if it fucks you up for a while?
Yeah,
like, that'll be a good learning experience.
Yeah, because
too.
you learn, right? You decide to face it, and you keep the things that are great. You embrace those, and then you find out what doesn't work. Discard that, and you wake up one day and because you had the balls to go for it, all of a sudden you have a ton of cool friends. You're surrounded by great artwork. You get to, what you do in your daily life is fun, and it's limitless. And like the whole thing transforms just by, I don't know, following that impulse.
And it's something everyone has. Like,
exactly.
We all can take actions and come up with words that do things in the world. And it's what being a person is all about. We learn this crazy language that we get programmed with, and then that language is this weird opportunity to, like, put our change into the world. You can arrange those words however you want and throw them out there and see what happens. Maybe you'll start something new, and maybe someone will punch you in the face. Words can make a lot of things happen.
Yeah. You were talking about levers, like pulling levers. I wanted to ask you specifically about, so getting back to, you start the threda in Wisconsin?
Yes.
In 2009.
Yep.
And so, like, one of the big levers you must have pulled was making the move out to Colorado.
Yeah, absolutely.
When did that happen? Maybe just tell us a little story about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I really wanted this whole thing to stick in Wisconsin because when you grow up in a place and you're an artist, you kind of just hope you can help make that place cooler or better or more fun for everybody.
Sure.
And the young people of Wisconsin were totally ready for me, but the existing framework of Wisconsin is still not at all ready for something extremely difficult to understand for some people.
Mm-hmm.
And Wisconsin's a very traditional place. It's a very traditional set of values.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of has this identity it feels a little locked in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I was there for a couple years, and you know what? Things were going pretty well because I was focusing mostly on the internet.
Yeah.
I kind of knew Wisconsin wasn't going to blow up into like the headquarters of the craziest art on earth. So I just tried to make it as widespread as possible. I really wanted to just send things all over the world. And after a couple years, I had some really good data to look at from, hey, these are the places in the world that like wants this stuff to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the two states that showed up at the top after a few years were California and Colorado.
Right.
Yep.
So those felt like my options.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Why'd you pick Colorado?
I think it was because I had this sense of this place having a way more open sense of what its identity is. Like
Yeah.
Denver's a changing city that's changing really quick, and it's finding out what its identity is.
Yeah.
Whereas in California, those places felt like really cemented. These people know what this place is. And California already has all of the amazing centers for art.
Yeah.
Everyone there is already integrated with the art world. They have Hollywood and the music industry, and there's been a great visual street art scene in the Bay Area and Los Angeles, like for a long time.
Yeah.
So it felt like maybe they didn't need me as much, and this seemed a little more relaxed. There's less people.
Yeah.
There's something about the mountains too. There's like this grounded openness to this area. It doesn't like, there's something about this area. I don't know if it's the land humming at a certain frequency, but it's like, it's not a competitive thing happening here. It's very collaborative.
It feels that way.
Open-ended. And
why do you like, what do you think the reason is for that?
I don't know. It's like we're in the middle of the country.
Yeah.
It's like this middle spot.
The
I think being surrounded, I think there's something to mountains
there definitely
that
is,
ground people or humble you. Or
You can't really climb a mountain. Well, you can, metaphorically speaking. It's harder to climb a mountain just by yourself. And so if you have like moral support, even if it's just people who appreciate what you're doing, then I think it's easier to climb those mountains. Also, Colorado seems to be like everyone's moving here. It's more fertile, I think. It seems to be like the new cool place to move, you know? And so I think we have just a lot of people who are kind of in that same mindset of this unexplored territory a little bit.
Yeah.
Like
that's what the West was all about.
Yeah. If you look at California, like the major hubs are on the beaches typically. And to use a metaphor again, if you're looking on a beach, the unexplored territory is the ocean, which is a little bit, people have sailed for ages, but like a mountain is unexplored territory that you can see, whereas the ocean is like just like the benthic depths and all that.
Just terrifying.
Scary.
Yeah, it's just completely terrifying. And so, I mean, and that's a very literary, like metaphorical way of speaking about
we
it.
literally don't know what's down there.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas with the mountains,
It's like,
we're
we
pretty
go up
sure.
to the peak.
Yeah, there might be Bigfoot, but that's it.
Yeah, there might be the chupacabra.
But I like what you're saying, and I agree. I think being able to look at something that's so much bigger than yourself gives you maybe a nice way of having big ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. I lived in Philly. It's a lot of head down. Out here, it's a lot of looking up and out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and there's so much
Expansion.
more open space. Like you can literally see for hundreds of miles.
Yeah. That's one of the things that really struck me when I first got here is I don't think I've ever seen this far before.
Right.
Yeah.
And it felt really inspiring to just like the further you can see, the better sense you have of where you are, right?
Yeah.
That's why people love lookout spots or going to the top of the Sears Tower or
Yeah.
going to the beach because you get to see for hundreds of miles
Yeah.
if you're on the beach, which is awesome.
And and the other thing too is I think, wasn't this area kind of founded because of like a gold rush and mining?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
And we're like in this, there's like this repeating pattern in this area. Now we're all like, it's like this creative
Right,
gold rush.
Right, yeah.
And like something's happening. So many people are moving out here and like, oh, what have you found out? Like, we're meeting and like exploring creative boundaries.
And I think that's what's always separated this place. If you're going to come up with an identity for this area, this is where people would go if they wanted to kind of try something outside of the establishment that was happening on the East Coast. Because the East Coast is where everything was established in terms of the America we know now.
Yeah, people came across the pond and then just plopped.
And whoever just didn't want to be part of that existing framework, the government had a bunch of programs where if you came out here, they would give you a piece of land just to try to help settle this area. And so people were inspired by, this is cool. I can go out to this new place and make my life the way I want it to be.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I was also thinking about, how you said like Wisconsin, the culture wasn't ready for what we're grooving on. And what I think is kind of interesting, and it plays into the hero's journey of, so we move somewhere where it is happening, right? And then there's a bunch of people working creatively, artists and musicians, transforming culture, science, studying psychedelics, transforming culture. And if that spreads out and starts saturating those towns that weren't ready for it,
You can go back.
You could go back at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's pretty.
That's exciting.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
It's like you did such a good job that you ended up completing your original thought of, I'd like to make this place a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever hold that in the back of your mind of like maybe one day?
I would really like the idea of going back and like participating more in that area because I still think it needs it.
Yeah.
But it's fully accepted now. Especially with younger people. But we're in this cool transition point where this stuff is starting to not be looked at as something strange.
Exactly. Right.
Right.
Yeah. We were talking earlier how, a lot of us have all had a hunch. There's something to psychedelics, spirituality, whatever, like this. It's been this like underground thing. There's something to this. It all ties in together. Creativity, mind expansion. And then you were referencing, what was that article called?
Let's see. I think, so it's a Business Insider article I think it's titled How Mushrooms Change the Brain. I believe it's somewhere along those lines. But it's really cool to see kind of objective opinions and data coming out about psychedelics, because to me that's why psychedelics are amazing, is because they objectively do something to everybody. It never relies on the placebo effect.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we have discovered these incredibly powerful things that do something fascinating to anyone who takes them. And that puts them in a category of their own, obviously. That's why the people who know about them are obsessed with them, because we realize this thing is different. It's very different from what anything else you can eat for the most part.
Yeah. Your whole idea of reality is transformed.
And this article did a great job just showing the objective situation of taking magic mushrooms, which is your brain creates new pathways between parts of it that didn't communicate as much before. And one of the fascinating parts about it, which ties into mushroom therapy, there's been lots of talk about mushrooms helping with depression.
Mm-hmm.
And this article mentioned that depression happens because the part of the brain where your sense of self is formed is too much wired into itself.
Oh, so it's like this isolated
so it breaks up.
loop.
Yeah, so you're stuck in a lot of repeated loops in your sense of self, and it makes hard to break out of your idea of why you're depressed, because people become depressed because of their idea of their self in a lot of ways.
Wow, so you're like, there's a feeling of being stuck in it, and like physically.
Yes,
Yeah.
you become it, and
literally.
Wow.
If you think about these pathways as physical properties, you're physically stuck with your state of mind in a sense. Not that you couldn't use meditation or traveling or something else to broaden your mind, but psychedelics are powerful because it's instant, and you don't have to, buy a plane ticket to 2,000 miles away.
Right.
And so I just thought that was fascinating, and it ties in with the creativity aspect too. I kind of think this thing we call creativity is we're just witnessing people making unique combinations between different pieces of knowledge and experience in their brains.
Yeah.
And so psychedelics can help with that, because it can maybe show you have these two things in your head already that are very creative when you put them together, but maybe you hadn't thought of that combination before.
Yeah, and it's like this simple brilliance. You had this here, and all of a sudden they combine together, and it opens this whole new lane of reality to explore.
And I think if you look at the people we look up to as the creative heavyweights, the Da Vinci and Teslas, they're famous for kind of showing us, these two things fit together that we hadn't thought of before.
Yeah.
They're showing us how reality can be combined in new ways.
Yeah.
It's cool. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, how finally we're allowed to actually scientifically research psychedelics.
Yeah.
And there's an actual physical, like what we are experiencing subjectively, our transformation is happening physically in the brain.
Yeah.
And it's one and the same. And it's validating, I think, for
Absolutely.
it's this growing culture of people that use them and have their lives transformed, and science is being like, yeah, this is happening.
And I think it's definitely a way that we can help with the world's problems, because since we're all human, we have to have transformation in ourselves in order to make the world a better place. And like you were saying, nothing does it faster. Nothing does it with more efficacy than psychedelics do. It's like so effective. And so
scary effective.
Like if you don't want to change your life, you should still probably take psychedelics, but also that's why you're probably trembling if someone's like, all right, let's eat this and see what happens.
Yeah.
So you're diving into the unknown and all these unknown parts of yourself. And it's I really think that it's along with just more art, music, understanding, compassion. It's a great way to change the world. And I think that that's why people are so drawn to quote unquote psychedelic, visionary, genreless art that we've been talking about. It's because it's a reflection of that experience and that state of mind.
Yeah. And it also occurs to me that in the individual, so the more people are experiencing the state of consciousness, right? Where you wake up to, you had this separate part of yourself, this separate part, and then you see the way that they all weave together. The more individuals that occurs to, in the collective will melt together and merge, instead of being like, here's this pocket of society over here, and this over here, and this over here. The more people realize that all these individual aspects of themselves weave together to something greater than themselves, that's reflected in the culture at large.
Yeah, it's like you can think of the culture as like the brain of the world or whatever. And
Terrence calls the culture your operating system.
Yeah, but it also, something else I wanted to say is it breaks down ideology and it breaks down these cultural barriers and boundaries that we have between each other, where in our, day to day we get fed all this media stuff, and there's a lot of people shoving narratives down our throat from the top that aren't necessarily true. And especially if you hang out with a person from a different culture, you realize that like we all kind of want the same things.
Yeah.
We all just want a happy life.
Totally.
We all want to keep the bill collectors away.
We all want our kids in our community to be healthy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I think has been really drawing people into these music festivals. They have this psychedelic element that kind of helps people, connect on a more primal level. You're realizing, oh, this is what being a person is all about, is we get together and we be social and we dance together and try to make things together and look out for each other.
Yeah, it's like a temporary, gigantic family or tribe.
And just like any family, there's problems.
Yeah,
but
sure.
That's part of
Exactly.
being a human. And
Someone phrased the whole the love thing really well once, and they said, you should really try your best to love everyone, but you definitely don't have to like everyone. And you can, you can avoid people that rub you the wrong way without condemning them or
not putting them out of your heart.
Right.
They always have a spot in your heart. You care for them, and
if you saw them in trouble, like you'd help
exactly.
them out.
And loving someone doesn't have to mean you want to be around them all the time and be a part of their life and stuff. It just means you're recognizing that they're another person who has their own issues, and you're not going to add to those issues.
Yeah.
Because
Totally.
that's the opportunity we have with everyone in our life. You can try to make their life easier, or you can try to make their life harder.
Yeah, and all you want is for somebody to feel okay, and namaste, motherfucker.
Yeah. is kind of, as much as that term feels a little overused sometimes, there's a lot of wisdom in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's all these things that have become like almost cheesy tropes, like
Right.
namaste or whatever. But like at the core of it is the essence of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Well,
I also think it's important to not take yourself or whatever practice you're involved in too seriously. You got to be able to make fun of it a little bit, and you have to be able
Humor.
to.
Absolutely.
You have to be able to be made fun of with like all right, kind of vibe. And the coolest people I've met. I'm looking at this Alex Gray print right here, and he is a really funny guy.
He's very funny, actually.
as
right.
well as like the kind of the grandfather, I guess you could say at this point of visionary psychedelic art. And he's a perfect example of someone who doesn't take himself super seriously.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
he's real easy to talk to,
And you know what? I think the reason people get upset when you get made fun of is you haven't really you haven't totally accepted all the things about yourself.
integrated
Because
the shadow.
every one of us is hilariously messed up.
Yeah.
Like we all are so strange, and we all have laughable qualities about us.
Yeah.
And if you haven't laughed at those qualities about yourself yet, then you're probably not ready for other people to laugh about them.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like accepting the full spectrum of you as a being,
Right.
You're the
Yeah.
brightest.
It's
light
okay
and you're
to be messed up, because everyone's got, we've all got our own version of being fucked up, crazy human.
Yeah.
Is like the people out there who think they're the most normal person. That might be the weirdest thing you could be.
Yeah.
As normal as possible. It's kind of hard to accept, but sometimes the people that seem like they're off the deep end maybe
Are just the most in touch.
they have accepted that reality is kind of insane, and if you let that in to your brain in the deepest way possible, you might be a little insane too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think like as a world or as a one planet we can really move forward and tackle all the problems we need to, if we're lugging around this like unconscious mind that is unexamined, like unexamined drives, weird quirks that we try and, box up in the attic of our mind and never look at.
Just good old fashioned bad habits that we all
exactly.
have. Like maybe one of the worst habits right now is people just trying to take the easy way out with everything. Going for convenience over
hard work.
Hard work.
Right. Or,
challenge. Yeah.
So, in terms of, this is kind of a, run of the mill question, but like in terms of influences, who or what do you have kind of like tucked under your arm, whether it's another painter, artist, visual artist, music, philosophy? Are there any that stand out?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
In terms of visual artists, just the people in art history that were so set on, creating their own language with paint. People like Van Gogh and Monet, and then Dali.
Yeah.
Just people who were so set on figuring out their own way to show you everything and show you who their artist self is. And those are the people who really got in touch with, this is what I can do that makes me unique.
Yeah.
They redefined art. They weren't scared to express themselves.
Not scared to explore or be different from people. So I really look up to those type of archetypes, people who showed up and changed everything, like Carl Jung with psychology.
Yeah.
He's a hero of mine for just thinking about how we are as people. He came up with the ideas of being an introvert and an extrovert, and his ideas about archetypes. All these things I find very useful for just understanding what being a person's all about.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan as well.
Yeah.
He's fantastic. Whether or not you agree with all of his ideas, he wasn't afraid to come up with new things. And then Bruce Lee is kind of a hero of mine in the arts because, I felt like he was the first person to show me that there's no correct medium for art. Because that's what he changed about the martial arts world, is he told everyone, look, your style doesn't matter. It's how you use it. Use whatever you want in the moment. Use what's right for you. And I really believe in that for visual art, is there's no right or wrong medium here. It's what are you going to do with it, and how are the results?
Is it effective?
Yes. Is it effective? Is it what you want? And so that's kind of how I've tried to run my my operation. Is we're not going to be stuck on this is the way to make art.
Yeah.
Right.
Painting isn't the best way to make art. Digital art isn't the best way to make art. These are just ways you can do it, and the results are what matters.
Okay.
And it's one of the things I find funny when I hear people talk about digital art and how easy it may be. But if that were the case, there wouldn't be so much like random digital art out there.
Right.
There's no shortcuts to making an amazing piece.
Yeah.
You have to have the fundamental skills to be a good digital artist, just like you do as a painter.
Totally.
And these things all kind of tie into each other.
Yeah.
Those are the same kind of people who booed Bob Dylan the first time he broke out an electric guitar.
Yeah.
It's like the purest kind of like.
Yes, the
but
purists.
then it's like,
or gatekeepers, you could call them.
Yeah. Or if you take it all the way back, it's like, I only like cave paintings. Like,
And you hear the same even within painting, like the endless acrylic versus oil battle that's happening as we speak.
The fight for supremacy.
It's like, does this shit look dope or not?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Whatever.
What I would like to point out to people is, okay, say you're an oil painter and you believe oil is the best. Are you making better paintings with your oil than some of these top acrylic artists? Because if not, maybe that's really not the best way for you to go.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the medium.
Your first principles need examining, and
Yes.
maybe
the
take some
foundation.
mushrooms. I don't know.
So here's something I did want to mention real quick that's difficult for people to understand about psychedelics is right now they have this mystique to them that they can kind of just change you into a really creative, like unique person, which is totally possible.
Yeah. Integration.
But you need
But
the
it's not
foundation of things that could become unique.
Yeah.
And without like real deep knowledge of certain things or deep experiences of certain things, the pathways the psychedelics will connect for you maybe aren't going to do as much,
Right. Yeah.
unless you got to preload all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's like if you're making a song in Ableton, having all that preloaded stuff is going to make the song come up really quick because there's things to play with.
Exactly.
Right.
But if you're just starting from scratch and you want to write like, a piece like Mozart, it probably isn't just going to happen out of nowhere.
No, you definitely have to work. It's I think the idea that psychedelics are just this analogous to like a pharmaceutical drug that will just kind of treat the symptoms and just make you feel better automatically it's a bit of a, I guess, misunderstanding I think that people have about them.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what the ultimate consensus is in maybe like 20 or 30 years about what these things actually do to us.
Right.
Yeah.
For now, it's kind of like we're accepting the status of guinea pig.
Yeah.
And who knows what we've done to our brains.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it was something helpful.
Seems pretty
It
healthy.
feels like it was in some ways.
Well, and there's like the balance of, opening yourself. It's an opening and it shows you potential.
Yeah.
But there's a common thing that we all have too, is that we work really hard.
Yeah.
We are sober and we put our nose down and we do the work.
Yeah.
And that's something to not be overlooked. You can't just take drugs and everything's going to work out.
Right.
And that's the downfall of looking at other artists on the internet.
Right.
Is you can't get a sense of hard work through just a picture of the painting.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
what the artist had to go through to get to that point.
Right.
The context is always kind of lost.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
that's why these kind of podcasts are good, because now you can get the context for how did this thing end up this way.
Yeah.
Right.
Didn't just like pop out of nowhere.
Right.
Like,
You don't take mushrooms and all of a sudden have willpower.
yeah.
Or
Which, you know what? I don't want to make any like objective claims about that, but you never know what'll happen.
Right.
I think
true.
there are people out there who have had one or two trips and were just at the perfect time in their life where it really did propel them with an energy that they could have never had before.
certainly.
Very
And
true.
I think I've seen that in some of the artists in our scene for sure.
Yeah, it's just it's a balanced reading of the situation surrounding psychedelics. It's not like they're not necessarily going to give you an extra boost in certain mental capacities, but it's not like they automatically will either. It's all about that setting.
There are definitely objective things, like with LSD, it will give you energy no matter what.
Oh yeah.
And
Right.
it's really fascinating how it's kind of guaranteed if you take this much, your brain's going to have energy for 20 hours,
Yeah.
whether you're ready for it or not.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Good luck falling asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real. But I also kind of think people lost a bit of the setting seriousness, because that's what we're rediscovering with the therapeutic uses, is if you give someone the right setting and have everything be very intentional, the results can be much more helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause there's these two schools, right? There's this whole party culture.
It's
of psychedelics.
it's Mary Pranksters versus Timothy Leary was the like OG psychedelic battle, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Or even Ram Dass, who, took so much LSD and he talks about chasing that feeling. And then he realized that like, oh, this feeling can just be kind of cultivated now that I've been there. And I think after a certain point, he didn't ever really take acid again, and he just kind of became his own guru.
I was actually, I was listening to a talk that he was giving well after he was doing the whole Ram Dass thing. And he said he did still take psychedelics, but it wasn't the thing. But he still found it to be an interesting experience, and it could show him blind spots and weaknesses, but it wasn't like the main event of his life. Right. It was another tool in his toolbox of being a loving being.
Right.
And I think that's something interesting too, is like you don't want to give your power to anything. Like, I need this to do this.
Right.
And instead it's all everything becomes a tool for awakening in a way.
Right.
It's
like the big picture kind of thing rather than being, needing something or using it as a crutch, because although psychedelics certainly are not physically addictive, you can kind of maybe get the sense like, oh, well, I'm going to create a better painting or a piece of music or whatever because I have this tool. It's like you can't use a drill to hammer a nail.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need a little bit of elbow grease.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times, like my wife, Blair, she's so grounded, and like we'll be doing something awesome and I'll be like, man, this would be so cool for tripping. And she's like, it's so great now. Just let it be great. And I'm like, oh, you're so right.
I guess it's a bit of one of those cart before the horse situations. Don't forget, you are already this crazy psychedelic thing. Like, we're already conscious and going through this wild experience of being aware of everything. Yeah. That's crazy enough as it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of, to me, it seems like an extreme sport for your brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Right.
Yeah.
It's like bungee jumping.
It's like if wingsuiting was the extreme sport for your body,
DMT.
Psychedelics is how to wingsuit with your brain, and you might crash.
That's true. That's very true.
You might end up somewhere weird.
That's a great analogy.
Did you have any particular breakthrough experience on, say, mushrooms?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Would you like to talk about it?
Yeah, it was really just what I needed. I felt like I had been introduced to smoking marijuana by my freshman year college roommates. Shout out to you guys. And strangely enough, when I first ate shrooms, my friend completely misinformed me about what they were like, because he was telling me what they were like for him.
Yeah.
And for him, he's like, it's like being really stoned. And I was ready, I was like, oh, great. Well, let's try it. And thankfully our place to do it was just in this really nice park at night. There was nobody there. And I just got to really be in some grass around trees and walk around and think about what I was doing and what existence is like. And it was just such a profoundly visual experience. I had so much more understanding of how much was happening around me, that inspiration was just like, wow, I have to try to get this into my visual art, because this is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I feel like people sometimes kind of twist the intention behind psychedelic art. Like, it's not all about showing people, oh, this is how to be super spiritual. It's more just, it's an excitement of having an experience that you can't stop thinking about.
Yeah.
And then you
the
make
most
that
interesting thing you ever.
Yes.
Right.
And if who's gonna not wanna translate their most interesting life experience into their art process?
Especially when it can affect not only you, but so many different levels of how the world is experienced for other people. If you can, if it helps you, usually that means it's going to help somebody else, at least one other person. And then if that, you can just take that and just kind of exponentially multiply it. to however many people are ready to be reached by that thing. And so when you have all these like good things in this kind of like hierarchy of orders, like order of an individual, an order of a group, an order of a city, on and on.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's important not to forget that the experiences in life and psychedelic experiences can be very dark too.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
translating those is also important because it
often
helps,
overlooked.
Yes, but it helps people understand and deal with their own dark experiences. And I try to keep that in mind with what I'm doing. I want there to be kind of an undertone of the dark side in there too. And that's why I like themes of duality, because it's showing us like these are the two things you're going to experience.
Yeah.
Being alive, you're going to experience the light and you're going to experience the darkness.
Yeah.
And we have to talk about and understand both of those things to be balanced.
That's how you give a full picture of, I don't know what your chosen term is, but God, the universe.
Yeah.
It's showing the whole thing, and that's true health, is recognizing the full spectrum, and not shying away from it.
Yeah. And Carl Jung said some really cool stuff about how you can't really understand yourself until you understand your darkness.
Yeah.
Because without knowing your darkness, then you might fall into having it do things to you.
You're controlled
that you're
by
not
it.
aware of.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, unexamined desires. And
Totally.
all the like. Yeah. Well, yeah, you can't have a nice mango tree without a little compost.
How nice.
Yes. Had that one tucked away, ready, just ready.
Is that an original phrase, or is
No,
that
that's synthesized from probably a lot of different things.
Did it-
I just really like mangoes, and I got a compost bin in my backyard.
the mangoes make it seem more unique?
Yeah.
I like that.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Oh, I have a pedestrian question.
let's do it.
What about, we talked about like art influences, and I know like your clothing is part of your art, but like, were you influenced stylistically by a certain designers or like the skateboard industry or like hip hop? Like, where does your unique style of clothing come from? Like,
Oh, okay. Yeah, in terms of just the clothing. I was always obsessed with just fun colors when I was a kid. I got to grow up in the golden age of sick, rad colors in the early 90s.
yeah, like the fucking neon
And
windbreakers and
since
shit.
I wasn't really making art when I was a kid, these are my memories of visuals, is like my favorite colors that I would wear. And I remember just looking forward to wearing this specific combo of purple and teal and just being excited all day that I had those colors on.
Hell yeah.
And, shoes were a big part of it too. I was obsessed with how much artistic design could be put in shoes.
Yeah.
And all the unique ways of making the fabrication, putting all these gel inserts in and unique designs, and just really inspired me. Like, wow, making clothing is really, it's about as artistic as it gets.
It's wearable art,
Yeah. And there's some people who like to say something can only be art if it has no function other than being itself.
I didn't know that.
It's kind of, I've heard this
the purist
actually
thing again, right?
I've heard this with car enthusiasts, that a car can't be true art because its main purpose is to be driven.
Okay.
But in terms of the clothing stuff, it's really just a function of, this is how we look as humans, and being able to display the art that you care about on your body, I think, is super powerful. And to me, that's why tattoos have really had this resurgence too, is because we've realized how awesome it is to get to choose what our bodies look like.
Yeah.
And in that way, I think it's the same as painting, because we're choosing what a canvas will look like, or we're choosing what this wall will look like. And it's to me, it's kind of the same thing, but it's just not on the wall, it's on your body.
Yeah.
And the fun part about it is you get to kind of be one with it. You get to be the thing.
Yeah, you're like this animated You're like an animated expression of the artwork. You know? It's cool.
And one of the major challenges is that I've kind of found most art shouldn't be made into clothing because there's all these weird things to consider about the human body and what colors look good on our skin and what things people feel when they wear certain shapes.
Yeah.
And all of these things are very abstract. And it's like I'm trying to crack this unknowable formula of this is what makes people feel good and what looks really good to have on our body.
Yeah.
It's like a piece of art, like cracking that code, that puzzle. You know, that's kind of what I think making something is in a way. It's like a puzzle. It's you're taking all these pieces of experience and knowledge and even your blind spots and misunderstandings, and you're just kind of throwing all the pieces on the table and being like, all right, how can I fit these things together?
Right. And sometimes you get the whole puzzle, and sometimes you're missing a few pieces.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's just part of
That's how it goes.
part of the experience. Yeah.
Now, you also mentioned, sorry.
Go for it.
So you mentioned you were really influenced by shoes. Do you think we would ever see threda footwear in the future?
Yes, as long as I can do it the right way.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't want to make a piece of clothing unless I know it's going to be competing with the best version of that piece of clothing that people know about.
Okay.
Because that's the goal of the art too, is we're trying to show people the best version of this type of art possible. And so same with the clothing, even if it's a t-shirt, like I want this to be the best damn t-shirt that is available.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, man.
Which is really weird to try to do because there's only so many things you can change about a t-shirt.
Right.
But there are like 500 different fitting t-shirts out there. So there is definitely work to do to figuring out like which one of these really works best for people.
Yeah. I mean, a t-shirt is such a simple piece of clothing, but it's rare when you buy a t-shirt that it like fits you.
Absolutely.
Like, it just hangs perfect and the material's good.
Yeah.
And you're like,
And you know, one of the reasons we're really known for our men's clothing, and it's just because this is stuff I've thought about for a long time, buying men's clothing myself. I've had all this experience of knowing, well, I don't really like how this type of hoodie fits, or I don't really like this type of fabric on my pants, and so I had like a lifetime of thinking about this stuff to put into my designs, and I've been looking for the way to do it for women's clothing too. Yeah. And lately I've been realizing it just means finding a woman who has a similar mindset as me. And so I'm kind of on the lookout now for this person who can do a version of what I like to do for myself, but do it for themselves as a woman.
Yeah. Ooh, so ladies, if you're listening and you want to
That's right. I'm looking.
Yeah. That's a business partner, right? Or,
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
What was I going to say? This is totally off topic now, but you were talking about people wearing art and kind of like being an expression of, the artwork by virtue of having it on your body. How do you view humanity? Do you think that we're some kind of like piece of artwork in a way, or it's like, I guess it's that what I'm trying to phrase what I was going to say in a question. That's a bit of a leading question, I guess.
Yes, I see. I just think being a person means you are creative, because we're not driven by all of our primal instincts as much as animals. We get to create things with our decisions and actions and words. We get to play with reality a bit more than the animals do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like I bet there's some animals that would totally change their clothing if they could think of that idea.
Yeah. Those select few, the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
And it's cool because there are certain animals that also do get to customize their look, which is, if you think about it, these are animals we talk about a lot, the chameleon and the cuttlefish and the octopus. These are like, these are some high level animals.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And they're even cooler than us for customizing their look. built into
Right?
there.
Can do it in real time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and you know what? There's the social aspect to it too, of sharing someone's art you care about with other people.
Yeah.
Because you can't invite everyone over to your bedroom to look at that sick poster on your wall. But if you've got that art in your jacket, you can take it off and let someone look at it that would never be in your house otherwise. And I think that's a really cool social feature of having the art on clothing, is people will talk to you about it. And
Yeah. Portable art.
I think it's fun to have strangers try to talk to you about artwork. I think that's,
it's great.
I think it's fascinating, and it's cool to do something that makes people talk that don't know each other.
Yeah.
I was wearing one of my own hoodies once in the grocery store, and some guy walked by me and he goes, "Sick hoodie, man." And a part of me wanted to be like, "This is my artwork." But then I was just like, he appreciates it. He doesn't need my whole story. You know what I mean? So yeah, I
That
totally
reminded
agree
me
with
of
you.
Jack Schur, wanting to avoid just being like, "Oh, I'm an artist,"
Oh yeah.
because then it does feel a little like you're kind of like, "Oh well, look how interesting I am."
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then it kind of sets the tone, like he was saying in our podcast on episode 3, I believe, maybe 4. But he was saying in our podcast, it kind of like, everybody's idea of an artist is different. So now they're interacting with you for the first time they've met you kind of through this filter of like, oh, this guy's like an artist, and maybe they don't have the most robust sense of like what an artist is, meaning an artist is just a normal person.
Maybe they dated an artist and it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Exactly. So I guess
Not
that's all to say.
not giving someone the chance to draw all their preconceptions.
Sure, yeah,
is
exactly.
kind of nice to just meet someone and you're both like just two humans, just talking about normal life stuff.
Yeah,
whatever that is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It is this thing, right, where like but you're eager to like show people your art. Part of it is ego fulfillment, but it's more like you're just so excited about the creation of artwork and the conversation that comes out of it.
Yes.
And it's this vehicle for connection with other beings.
and
you get to like melt into it as you see it and talk about it.
Right.
And
you kind of want to give them the feeling that you had while making it, I think is part of the equation there.
Yeah.
But again, just some guy passing me in King Supers being like, "Sick hoodie." And, I didn't need to like, make his experience about me being like, "I'm the guy," or whatever. Anyway, so what's new? What's coming down the pipe with threda? You guys have this amazing space here.
Yes.
On Santa Fe.
Should we mention where it is and when you
sure.
have events?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're in the classical art district of Denver, which is on Santa Fe Drive. It's from what I understand the oldest collection of galleries in the city. And it's fun. It's like we finally got that other piece to the puzzle. I've always obviously wanted a gallery because that's how you show people your artwork.
Yeah.
And I was really just waiting for the right space because I didn't want to jump into it too early and have it be a little not the right fit, or I just wanted it to feel good to people, I like waiting until I feel like this thing is worth sharing.
Yeah, you have really strong intuition, it seems. You know when's the right moment to jump on something, because, I mean, you held out and this space is perfect.
Thank you.
It's amazing for events.
I don't even know if I'd call it intuition. It's maybe like a heavy sense of self-criticism where I don't like the idea of doing something if I can feel it's not as good as it could be.
Yeah.
Because to me, like putting something out that isn't where it could be I hate that feeling.
Yeah.
And because once you put it out there, it's done. And now you get to think about what you've done for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And so I just try to be very careful about what I'm going to be thinking about the rest of my life in terms of what I did with my, my ideas for being creative.
Yeah.
or just living your life in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then this gallery space, it's open during the week, right?
Yes.
And then first Friday of every month, huge gathering down here.
Yeah, it's a cool part about Denver. People have a real excitement for going and seeing art here, and it's awesome. Like, the amount of art events you can go to in Denver over the summer is exhausting.
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
It's
Yeah.
overwhelming.
So you'll never be able to go to all of them.
And it's always, I just love how it's just such a mixed group of people, all families and people visiting, and every type of person comes out to these things.
Yeah, that's what's so cool about being in this location now is so many people that wouldn't otherwise be exposed to this art. Like, it's so cool. It's not just like heady scenesters. Like, there's little kids looking at the art like, whoa.
Yeah,
and I think that's
absolutely.
so awesome and inspiring,
It kind of feels like a runaway art project right now in Denver, where it might have gone too far, but in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's getting crazy, but it's not an all bad type of crazy at all.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know what? Having kids react to the artwork, that's one of the coolest things.
It's so genuine.
And it's
awesome.
I think they can sense fun. And so when they see something and they get a fun reaction out of it, they understand that this is a really exciting, fun thing to do with life.
Yeah. And you're opening that potentiality to kids. I mean, the influence of being in a place like this and seeing this fun artwork, it opens up this idea of like, oh, I want to make fun art,
Yeah.
Because I remember growing up and I thought art was kind of like boring and stuffy.
Me too. Absolutely.
So,
And I think that's the majority of what people are still dealing with is our sense of what the art world is like is a little outdated for most people.
Yeah.
I can't. There's so many people that when they think of an art gallery, they think of looking at that painting that's half black and half red.
Like,
You're just trying to figure out, why don't I get anything out of this?
And there's like a couple paragraph explanation next to the painting, and they're like, "Oh, this is a metaphor for for the climate of capitalism versus Marxism."
And for me, a lot of times that paragraph makes me feel like it's basically saying, "Hey, idiot! In case you didn't realize how deep this is, here's we're throwing you a bone here so you can participate."
But it's that shit's not cool. I don't know. Like,
there's something beautiful about art that is just valuable immediately
As it
upon
is.
viewing it.
Yep.
It's just it's fun.
Not needing to have the context for the art, I think, is really exciting for people, and I think that's why people like to see Rome. It's because you don't need any context to see how amazing and detailed the buildings are. It's just, that is the way it is. It's all very artistic, and you don't need anyone explaining to you that, 1,000,000 hours of carving work is exciting.
It just overwhelms you. It's I just got back from Rome. I was there like
cool.
2 weeks ago. Just mind blowing,
he was
It's
sending me
just
pictures.
soaked in art and hard work.
Yeah.
And it makes you, it's amazing just to think people that had so much less resources could make that happen.
It's
And
insane.
It's hard to believe.
Being in the presence of something like that, it makes you, it instills in you, you want to grow and become a better being.
Yep.
Because it's just so overwhelmingly amazing.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I'm not doing a damn thing. I got to step my shit up, There's something really exciting and fun about that.
And I think, I don't know if I'm really on point with this, but I feel like the idea of art just being super fun and for fun is a little recent in the terms of art history.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things I wanted to mention was just, I think that kind of switched a bit because of the camera, because art painting used to be the camera.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted a scene of your wedding or a king wanted his portrait, someone was going to paint it.
Yeah.
Right.
And when the camera came out, it kind of, put a stop to just painting things to keep a record of them.
Mm-hmm.
And another fascinating thing about the camera is that it also aided people in making the most realistic paintings yet of landscapes, because being a landscape painter in the past meant you had to sit there and try to capture the scene in front of you as quickly as possible. But now with photos, you could take your time and look at that photo you made and just render everything immaculately like they couldn't before. And I think just losing that concept of painting is for capturing moments. Now painting started to become, it's for capturing our creativity and our inspiration that is in our head. And I love that we're kind of like, it feels like to me we're at the point of this new form of art, of it being fun and exciting, where it became so accessible to everyone that aspect of it exploded. And we have so many artists now who are doing it because they're having fun. And I think that's really a new chapter in the art world, is we've got all these people all over the world. Doesn't matter your like income level, art stuff and ways to make art is so accessible now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's cool.
It's like a camera for the imagination.
And that's, I think it's one of the best parts about having the job that we do is we get to try to pick up where words left off, because words can take us to this certain place with being creative and having an imagination, but words have so many shortcomings too. And we all have different ideas about what words mean. And so the painting just lets you create things that words could never contain.
Exactly.
And that's like, it's beautiful. We're getting to transfer ideas to people that we couldn't tell them about.
Yeah, like literally communicating the ineffable.
Absolutely. And that is definitely in a tradition in art. When you see these epic religious Renaissance paintings, that's clearly what they were going for. This is heaven. There's no way you could imagine this. It's that's what I was picturing. Some of those, like the Sistine Chapel, they were trying to capture something that people could not fully comprehend themselves.
It overwhelms you, and when you're in the Sistine Chapel, you get this understanding of the nature of being in such a deeper way than words ever could. You could see, Michelangelo through contemplation and meditation and the words of the Bible synthesize this imagery that just like it smacks you in the head, and you're like, oh, whoa. And you're just overwhelmed, and you realize the transcendent nature of it all. And I think that's cool,
It's interesting. Like all these old places in the world that have traditions of art, they're places everyone wants to visit, and no one's like, well, maybe they are now, but we're a little more articulated nowadays, but maybe you don't think like, oh, I'm going to the Muslim temples to see the sacred geometric work so that I can get a hit of the transcendent. You just go there because it's like this rich cultural icon, so to speak, that does transcend words and kind of leaves you with this experience of awe. And that's I don't know exactly who we're going to reach with this podcast, but anyone listening who's who might be on a city council or a grant board, just know that like people still go to Paris because of the artwork. People still go to Florence maybe only because of the artwork. And so if you really want to build something that lasts, investing in art is it's a damn fine investment.
Seems like the greatest investment you could possibly have is investing in creativity and artwork.
And I heard I can't remember who it was, but someone was talking about they're changing the STEM fields, which means science, technology, engineering, and math, to STEAM, to include art in that. Science, technology, engineering, art, and math.
Shout out to homies like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Jordan Peterson and those guys that they speak on the importance of art and how integral it is to humanity. A lot of times we might even forget how important it is ourselves, artists at home, artists here, that, it's like, it's the essence of humanity in a way, like you were saying, that's what a human being is. We're creative, and we create with art and also science and all that. Like we're conducting magical spells and constructing, I don't know, I suppose a more beautiful world than what already existed.
And I think that's one of the cool parts about living here. We don't really have a deep 1,000-year history of artistic traditions in the U.S. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like the identity for what the artwork could be here was very open-ended because there weren't as many cultural traditions to follow out here.
Exactly.
And I think that's been really exciting that we kind of we're figuring out what we want to make in terms of art. Mm-hmm. And maybe in Europe, it's almost a bit of a distraction for them because they have such a rich history of what their art looks like.
How do you break
everywhere.
out of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to consider when you're an artist in Italy and you're an Italian artist, like there is so much to consider about what being an Italian artist is like.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I think that would fuck me up.
It's a lot of pressure.
You'd be looking at that shit every day. You're like, what do I even do?
It probably has helped some of their artists have that very refined classical sense too,
exactly.
which I definitely get that when I look at artists from Europe. They have kind of,
it's mature.
yes,
Yeah.
they have this pride they have to kind of continue of my historical ancestors have been making art for a long time and we're really good at it.
Yeah.
And this is what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I know you were doing the series of threda art workshops with you had a bunch of really incredible artists host art workshops.
Yeah.
Are you still doing those, or are you going to do another wave of them?
Absolutely.
Right on.
Yeah, and that was a very new thing for us. And sometimes it takes me a while to figure out what's our version of this. I'll try an idea just to see how it pans out. Mm-hmm. And then I like to just think about it for like a year or two.
Yeah.
Just really let it marinate before I do it again.
Yeah.
And that way I'm not just like, herky jerky all over the place. It's like, I want to wait to make sure this thing's going to be really a refined thing for people, if possible.
Yeah. Did you get some good feedback from that first series of workshops?
And one of the challenges is every artist has their own distinct way of communicating with people. Mm-hmm. And so It's fascinating to watch how different each workshop is. And, some artists will just go around and paint on every person's canvas and just show them exactly what to do. And others will completely let people, flail around and just do their thing and then talk about what happened.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there's, I don't think there's a ton of perfect answers for how to run an art workshop. It could be anything. You could just talk about ideas for a few hours and that might be super useful. And I think the philosophy of how to think as an artist is super important.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because the techniques is important, obviously, but before you do those techniques, your thoughts have to have a good quality to them too. Mm-hmm. So
that's one of the coolest aspects of an art workshop is, not the technique, but just seeing how the artists that you really like, how do they groove with reality?
Yeah.
And getting a hit of that,
And it's not for everyone because let's be honest, for most people, talking in front of a group of others who look up to you it's kind of daunting, and how could you not be nervous, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. You're trying to talking about the thing you're most passionate about, I think is also kind of nerve-wracking sometimes.
Yeah. Well, because you care about it so much.
Right.
And
That's why Andrew wouldn't talk to that guy about his hoodie because you would have to talk to that guy for hours.
Or, he might have been like, cool, dude.
Yeah. I just like the hoodie, right?
Yeah. It's like, it's also at that point, it looks like I'm just trying to make another friend or something.
And so that's what's cool about art workshops is these people show up because they're ready to listen to you.
Right.
And so it's an opportunity to really have people actually take your words and think about them
and embed them and
take them seriously instead of just feeling like, oh, I heard this artist ramble and outside of
and I was just trying to get mac and cheese.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, artists love to talk about artwork, and I think some of us easily get stuck, maybe pushing the limits of what someone else will handle with listening to us.
Yeah.
Wanting to explain everything is very, it's very tempting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Especially if they seem to have no idea what you're doing.
Right.
Then you definitely feel like maybe you owe them an explanation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I don't know. We're like 2 hours in. I guess this podcast will come out in the next few weeks. What kind of events or things do you have in store with threda?
We're going to try to do some really unique, collaborative, focused events. We're going to try to, throw some events that are really focused on people just watching painting and collaboration happen.
Yeah. Cool.
And I don't think there's been many events that so heavily focus on you are going to come and watch somebody paint. And they're going to paint from start to finish in front of you. So you can really understand like what goes on when somebody has a blank canvas
Yeah.
and somehow turns it into something in a few hours. That's I think it's something everyone would like to see.
Yeah.
And to me, it's akin to having a favorite guitar player or drummer. And I don't know about you guys, but I have no idea what it looks like when I hear this person's insane guitar solo or drum solo through the record. You have to go see them live to understand, like, this is how this person makes this work.
Yeah.
Totally.
And there's something really impactful about understanding in person what somebody is doing.
Yeah.
So I would love to just be focusing on giving people the full, like, creative experience.
Right on. Yeah, because that's, you like to show artwork to people where you get a hit of that person, and you can you're cranking it up even more by the person creating that artwork, and then you get to actually see the physical body, and somebody gets to say hello to the artist maybe.
Yeah,
or they just get to see the way they smile and move and dip their brush in the paint, all that.
There's a lot to learn there. And a lot of times I decide things just based on what I would be excited about.
Yeah.
And I would be super excited to watch any of my favorite artists paint for an extended period of time.
Totally. Yeah.
Especially with at a fun location with a bunch of other people. That seems like a great time to me. And
oh yeah.
I think other people who are really into painting could get a lot out of it. It's kind of, it's like a event/workshop at once, because you get to pick up real life skills. And there's so many weird things with painting that you'd never understand unless you saw that guy set up his palette this way, use the water this way. There's so many subtle things that go into how somebody paints. And same with digital art. Watching the tools somebody uses in Photoshop is it's eye-opening every time, because there's so many ways to use Photoshop. I learned something from almost everybody I watch use Photoshop, even though I've used it for so long. And I see it happens vice versa too. When people watch me just do a couple little actions, there's all these aha moments
I didn't know you could do that.
Right.
Yeah. And so just being in the same space as people is
it's really cool.
and maybe,
It's awesome.
and hopefully being able to ask a question if you really need to know something too.
Totally.
Why did you do that?
Yeah, and you'll find more often than not artists are super psyched to share what they know with you if you're curious.
Yes.
So-
Well, if you would hope so if they're at a public event.
Yeah. So, what's the best way for people to pay attention to threda, to see what events are coming up, what new products you have? What are the best avenues?
The two main avenues are just our Instagram, our Facebook, and then our email list. That's how we tell everybody everything that's happening.
Cool.
Kind of just like a lot of every other business these days, I guess. So at least we've all figured out this is how you tell the most people about your stuff, and it happens to be through the internet.
Right on. Yeah, and you can subscribe to the newsletter at threda.com.
Yeah, totally. At the bottom of pretty much every page on our website, you can subscribe to our newsletter. And I do my best to keep people up to date on things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Right on.
Nice.
Do you have any Do you have any parting words for aspiring artists, creatives, entrepreneurs?
Yeah. I would just say, just like with any other skill, you have to condition yourself to think about failure differently.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make failure kind of a habit, and after a while, it's not going to bother you at all.
Yeah.
Eventually, you'll feel like a total badass because you don't even care if something doesn't work out right.
Right.
It's the whole mindset of succeed or learn.
Mm-hmm.
The failures are going to be probably even more useful than the successes a lot of times, because the failures show you how the successes need to work.
Right on.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's
So
great
just
advice.
get in there and fuck up a whole bunch of times and try to act like it's all good.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Oh yeah, man. Thanks for sitting down and talking with us
Absolutely.
today.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Peter.
That's THREYDA.
Yes. Thank you for spelling it. Google will fix it for you, but yes, that's how you spell it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank
Just
you,
wanted
Andrew.
to make sure. Yeah.
Right on.
And thank you guys. I'm really excited. Somebody's getting artists to talk about what they do in great detail. So
Hell yeah,
I think you guys
dispelling.
are providing real service.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. So thank you as
And
well.
We
likewise.
couldn't do it without you,
Yeah.
with our great guests. So,
Yeah.
it's a collective
For
effort.
community.
Yeah. And for you listener at home.
Yeah. So thank you for listening, and tune in next week. And much love, y'all.
Yeah. Peace. We love you.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Artsy AF Podcast.
For additional images and notes on this episode, you can check out our website, artsyafpodcast.com.
And you can find me, Andrew Norris, at andrew.norris.arts on Instagram, and andrewnorrisarts.com is my website. I also have links on my website to episodes as well as all my best paintings.
And you can find me, John Speaker. My website is johnspeaker.com. On Instagram, I'm at John Speaker, and on Facebook, John Speaker Art.
And we want to give a special thanks to Blair Speaker, John's lovely wife and creative director of the podcast. She also updates the website and does all the podcast notes. So thank you, Blair.
And we'd also like to thank Tyler Billman. He created the music for this podcast. You can find Tyler on SoundCloud and Instagram. His name is Get Billsman. That's GetBillsman.
Thanks again for listening. Peace.
Thank you.